Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Idahoan Show. So, when we discuss home gun building from a socio-political perspective, a lot of times the conversation sort of revolves around criminals. We show how easy it is to construct a firearm that is sufficiently functional for criminal purposes, and therefore we explain that gun bans are pointless because if criminals cannot buy or steal firearms, they'll just build their own. And so there's no legislation we can pass that's going to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. Therefore, we shouldn't bother passing it at all because it would only render law-abiding citizens defenseless. Now, that's a perfectly valid political argument, as I've explained in other videos, but I wouldn't want people to get the idea that home gun building is only for criminals. And so I wanted to make this episode to kind of extol the social virtues of home gun building and really explain how it contributes to the welfare of our nation. And I think it really boils down to two benefits, or two sort of classes of benefits. First there are the direct benefits. Now, to explain what I mean by this, let me back up a little. If we look at the recent military conflicts that the United States has been involved in, particularly Iraq and Afghanistan, we really see a resurgence of the importance of small arms in deciding these conflicts. Prior to that, we'd been involved in some more mechanized conflicts where it was our heavy artillery, our bombs and our missiles and so forth that won the war for us. But increasingly we're seeing that while, GPS-guided bombs and ballistic cruise missiles and things like this are effective for obliterating heavy infrastructure, the only way to take out a group of insurgents and restore peace in an area that they had been terrorizing is to send in soldiers with rifles to find them and shoot them. And so, if the United States wants to maintain its position of global military supremacy, not only do we need to continue building heavy artillery like aircraft carriers and ballistic missile submarines and GPS-guided munitions, but we also cannot afford to ignore the importance of small arms, of making sure that our soldiers in the field have the best rifles and other firearms that are available. And so the only way to do that is through ongoing innovation in the field of firearms design. And that's where I'm concerned that a lot of our major defense contractors probably are not thinking of small arms as a field of active research. They're off designing the latest and greatest GPS-guided superweapon, and more power to them in that regard, but we still need to pursue research in basic firearms. And that's where freelance inventors really have an advantage over major corporations. You look at the history of firearms development, and most of the innovative guns, the gun designs that really changed the face of the firearms industry, were come up with by individuals, not by corporations. Some of those individuals were employed full-time by a corporation. Some of them may even have been working in design teams. A lot of them were freelance inventors. And, if you've ever worked for a major engineering corporation in the U.S., you certainly know how corporate bureaucracy stifles innovation like CO2 stifles fire. The two just don't go together. And so that's where I think that in order to maintain our small arms supremacy on the world stage, we really need to cultivate a population of freelance inventors who are tinkering with firearms, because we don't know who might be the next John Browning, who's going to come up with the firearm designs that shape the next century of small arms development. And so that, of course, is the direct advantage of having a population that is dabbling in firearms design, firearms construction, freelance invention, and home gun building. But then we also have the indirect benefits to society of having a population of people that are building guns at home and dabbling in freelance firearms design. Because if you think about the skill set that it takes to design and build firearms, those skills carry over into a lot of other disciplines. It takes metalworking skills, machining, potentially welding, maybe sheet metal fabrication, perhaps increasingly some alternative fabrication techniques, whether that's additive manufacturing or other things that are fields of active research. Or then on the design side, just having a good understanding of mechanics, being able to visualize and conceptualize how a mechanism works, how to design a assembly of mechanical components such that they will perform an intended function. And in order to develop these skills, of course, you have to start out fairly simple and work your way up. And that's where firearms really span a spectrum of complexity from the very simple to the moderately complex that provides the ideal training ground for aspiring inventors and engineers and machinists and mechanics to gain the skill set necessary for potentially working on more complex machines. So even if you're ultimately going to go into developing something like nuclear reactors or jet engines, it might be well worth your while to spend a couple of years designing and building guns just to cut your teeth on a mechanically simpler yet still reasonably complicated system. And so that's why I believe that it is socially beneficial for law-abiding American citizens to be designing and building guns, at a hobby or small business level, and why that's something that really we as a nation need to promote. Both because it will help to ensure ongoing innovation in the field of firearms research and thereby ensure our national security, and because it will help to ensure that we continue to have a population of skilled designers and craftsmen who can continue to contribute to the advancement of our industry in other areas. Anyway, thank you for watching the Idahoan Show.